Welcome to today's podcast. I feel very lucky to have Mike with me. I spent some time with Mike. He actually spent time on the stage here having a debate, and it was really fascinating. A lot of people said to me afterwards how refreshing it was to hear the honesty, the truth in the industry. And I haven't really known you for a short time. You really come across with that. And so, I feel pretty pleased to have you as part of our guest today. And then my name's Tim Moore. I'm the co-founder of ONEEV. As part of sitting at ONEEV, we decided to arrange for that made it easier for EV drivers, all designed around EVs, being an EV driver, designing not on tech, but basing it on the end user. And that's really where Mike comes in as well, because his business, in my opinion, really matches those values. Mike, please tell everybody a little bit about you and also your business.
Just a little bit about me. Always more keen to talk about the business side of things. I'm Michael. I'm the Michael Gibson, CEO at Fuuse. You'll see on there Mike and Michael, and I have loads of nicknames as well, which is never a bad thing. And I'm CEO of Fuuse. And Fuuse is a charge point management system. We manage. The software runs on people's charge point infrastructure and does a vast array of clever things, basically bringing it all together, allowing control over access, who gets to use the chargers, who doesn't, the circumstances to do, the time in which they can do it, takes payments, makes sure that the chargers are up and running. And there's a service wrapper around that, which is we offer a 24/7 driver support center, which we operate ourselves, own and operate. And we do a lot of network operations work as well in terms of supporting operations teams, fleet managers, facilities managers, etc., to get the very most out of their charging infrastructure.
Thanks for that, Mike. And just to endorse some of the things about when you talk about support, actually, to be quite honest with you, Mike, your team are just super awesome in terms of support. They get to us really quickly. Don't think that that's the norm, because from my experience, it's not the norm for all CPOs to have that really forthright support system. A lot just hide behind this group email address and then they get back to you eventually. But your team are really hands-on. So yeah, from first thing for me and still bigging up your team was super awesome. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, because what people see us is a tech business, and you've got to be a scalable tech business that's going to grow and be lean and well organized. However, the very nature of the EV charging business, there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of people new to it still who are trying to learn, never experienced what it's like effectively to operate a fueling station, if you like, within their own car parks, and maybe not even EV drivers themselves. So you've got to work with these people to get the very, very most out of it. And the people really recognize that. And genuinely, I believe that we've hired a really awesome team, and many of them with us for the whole duration of 5 years. And there's very few people out there in the market in our team who know more basically than a lot of people. Really, some staggeringly good people.
Brilliant. Yeah,
I'd love to name them all.
Yeah, so kind of originally though motivated you to get involved in EV charging in the first place?
It's an interesting story, really. Myself, my co-founder Will came from the routing and scheduling market. He wrote basically the algorithmic brains that sit behind some of the UK's biggest systems. So things like RouteMonkey. He wrote the algorithmic brain that sits behind that. He wrote Iceland's home delivery network system and did all that. And obviously that was about optimization, and the benefit that would bring would be a reduction in fuel costs. And we were looking then around logistics and data optimization for fleets. And it's one of those things. There's a great thing that says luck is when there's no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And we were having our regular weekly badminton. We call it dadminton, basically a bunch of fat old blokes who need to get fit and healthy. And we're all gathered together outside, chatting away. And then Daniel, one of the guys who now operates the CPO, charge point operator, Charge My Street, said to us, do you want to get involved in an Innovate UK project to do with electric vehicles? And we'd had a little bit of involvement with Shell and the New Motion business about 8 months earlier, and we'd had a little bit of flavour of the EV world. But Daniel mentioned it. We're like, yeah, absolutely. Let's work out. And our job really was about the data science piece, about understanding where charging infrastructure was going to go and how underserved communities like urban areas with terrace housing. This is 2019, and then rural areas, and how they would get commercial electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And then that was quite a small project. But then the post project was a full-blown delivery project to create a charge point operator, which we did with Charge My Street. And there was about 10 other partners. And so we moved from a project that was maybe £40,000-50,000 to 4 million. And our original intention, and we had a really small pot of money, about UK, to work on the data science piece and data integrity and the reporting side. And it happened to be in COVID, and we'd signed all the papers, and one of the partners got purchased, and the partner that bought it said, we don't want to be involved in this project. And all of a sudden, there was another £300,000 on the table, and they said, does anybody got any ideas of how they could utilize the money? Yes, please. We'll build a charge point management system to power the network. And that's how it came about. We literally, again, opportunity meets preparation. We were ready to go and do it. We had a team, and that was it. And we went for it. And we rolled out the platform in full about 8 months later, and was up running the Charge My Street network at the beginning of 2021.
Wow, what a story. I think, look, with your experience, I don't think the listeners from my podcast would let me live it down if I didn't get lots of questions into you. So I'm going to use all that experience because you're sort of in, what is relatively short space of time. You've seen a lot happen in this industry.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, where do EV drivers still feel the most frustration when charging away from home?
It's a good question. Obviously, we get that through drivers. Payments is always an issue. People have different preferences. And obviously, some of the government have determined that contactless on the road charging should be the principal form of payment, and really didn't take full understanding of roaming and the benefits of cars like ONEEV. Whereas in Europe, obviously, it's all geared towards roaming. And roaming is standardized, and it's how you do it. And when you start to get that, you start to go, well, I don't want to have all these apps, or I don't want to have, or have to use a contactless card because I get a pre-authorization, say, on certain networks can be as much as sort of £55-60 even. And if there's a failed session and that's not returned, say within 2 or 3 days, that becomes a real frustration.
Exactly.
I think the biggest challenge though is fundamentally education. People purchase the vehicles, and the level of information you get. I mean, if you can imagine buying you started selling petrol and diesel vehicles today, say, right, you've got to fill it up with this explosive substance, and you go through all this kind of process. You've got to go to these filling, all this kind of thing. You would begin an education journey with people, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it could be the dealerships, could be leasing companies, whatever. You just give them the car and go and work it out for yourself. Yeah. So simple things like, my car, I've got a Genesis GV60, middle of summer, 280 miles, 290 miles range. Middle of winter, potentially as low as 200. Yeah. And you can imagine the first time you're going, hang on, what's happened to my car? And then somebody hasn't explained it to you. Charging, how a vehicle fundamentally charges, that in summer, again, it can charge faster than it can in winter, and preconditioning and pre-warming of, if you like, the preconditioning of your battery and all these kind of things. There's so many things that can go on, but if you don't have it explained, you're basically on a personal learning journey where it's you and the internet trying to find out why certain things happen in certain ways. And we could do so much more if we just supported people with a bit of education around it.
I think it's so right, because I look back to when I first got my EV, and I had to navigate some of these myths, alongside what was fact. You have to kind of find your safe through it. I mean, the manufacturer was good at selling me the car. They weren't really good at educating me afterwards. So I think there's a part to play in the purchasing. What do you do next? I mean, I do make myself smile when I think about, if we all started from the world of electric and then was thinking about moving to petrol, it would go something like this, wouldn't it? Which is, I'm all about, you buy a petrol car and you put this flammable fuel into your car, which creates multiple explosions underneath where you're sitting, and then you drive it around. It always makes me laugh that actually that's what really you'd be selling the other way around. And I see at the moment a lot of things out there, which is kind of like the myths around battery range and the problematic things that go on. And actually, to be honest with you, it's a hard thing to navigate from a consumer's level, because they don't know what is myth and what is reality. And that also, as well, I think something more the industry must do in terms of bringing awareness in. So I totally agree with you. One of the things I would say has been like the new kid on the block, someone that didn't start in this world and someone that has come and learned it. I think we've had some really good focus on tech. I mean, the tech side of it, you talk about what you do in terms of being able to fundamentally have a program that helps us get our customers to your system and
Hmm.
start it and remotely get electric charging going on, all from an app. I mean, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
But I also think, though, as well, because the focus has been on the tech, the experience of what I'm seeing is the industry also underestimated the end consumer and their needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, go back to that education piece. Government spending billions of pounds supporting the rollout of electric vehicles either through direct purchase, through grant subsidies for purchasing, the charging infrastructure network, etc. And yet you think, well, if you'd only spent maybe 20 million on an education campaign, you'd probably
Yeah,
find that small amount of money relative to the sheer other volume of money, a small amount of money like that in theory would have put a hell of a lot more people to EVs
absolutely.
than simply just putting charging infrastructure in the ground.
Yeah. I mean, it's a series of things. I remember looking around on the internet as to buy my home charger, and they were saying all these prices. And I was like, "Well, that's actually quite expensive." So then I
Mm.
made the call to the company that I was thinking about buying, only to find out that I could get a grant. Up to that point, by the way, I didn't even know there was a grant system available to be able to get a grant for home charging. And so
Yeah.
it's the educational piece about actually some of the things that are supporting the transition into EV driving and the supporting structure of things that you can do. But let me take it in a different direction in terms of about doing the right thing for the end user, because I know you're really about that, and definitely your team are.
Mhm.
When Fuuse talks about getting it right, what does that really mean in practice, though, for drivers? What do they see when you get it right?
I mean, that's just that simple experience. I mean, what we want to have is a vehicle roll up to a charger, and within a matter of less than a minute, they're charging.
Yeah,
And it's seamless experience, and the whole journey's connected in terms of understanding that, and you've got an idea of how long you're going to, there's time it's going to take to charge, the time that you want. So if you go away from your vehicle and leave your vehicle, that you can always just check a phone and know where your charging session is up to. And then you return to your vehicle, and completing that session is easy. And all those good things that you need, a record of that session is retained, your receipts, all the things that you need is all with you to when you continue on your journey. So post the session, you know exactly where you were, what it was, and how fast it charged, all the good things that you want that visibility over.
yeah,
And again, trying to tie it back to some of that education piece as well, some of the ideas that we're developing around what that future would look like to try and support people through our apps to support that journey and give people that little bit of background information about their session, so they know maybe why, if it ran slower, why it ran slower.
yeah.
All the things that, maybe they're answering some of the questions that people have.
Yeah, it's like you're doing some post analysis on how to basically make that more right more often. And I think that as well is a really important thing, because I can honestly say, having followed the process and the
Mm.
consumer journey, you hit the nail on the head. The different simplicity, you getting it right, the person can turn up, know the price, get a starter charge, finish the charge, get a receipt, and drive off.
Yeah.
Is no different than they've actually experienced elsewhere with petrol and diesel cars. So this facilitates exactly what it is.
Yeah.
What I see, though, as well, and this is really important, is that because we put so much focus on structure and getting more and more equipment out there, I don't see everybody operating that same way, though. So, I've got to pay a compliment to Fuuse and what you're doing there, to the fact that actually you are doing something which we value the most, and what our customers tell us is the most important. They just want it to work.
Yeah, exactly.
And that might sound easy, but I know what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, you've got an incredibly smart team, and you give that story about how you develop the systems and stuff. I mean, it's clear that there's had to be a lot of work done by very smart people in the background, but now I think we're in that shifty mode where the work pays off from what you've done and got right in the first place, to now the consumer, the end user, getting the experience that they deserve.
Well, there's that kind of, you talk about these, one of the things like Maslow's hierarchy of need, your pyramid of things, and up the top is all the things you'd love to have, kind of thing, and then the bottom of the basics. And I think we can talk about a lot of different things like, V2X and, even things like plug and charge, that would probably be a bit up the pyramid. What people want fundamentally is that baseline building block, that it just works.
Yeah.
And our intention, I mean, obviously some of the issues that are in the industry that cause a session not to start, or any other than many issues some of the people face, is not going to be solved tomorrow.
No.
But what we're trying to do is iterate and understand. And what we do is that things like our driver support service gives us a very, very clear understanding about why a session fails. And sometimes, it's not a technical problem. It's actually human behavior. They might do something in the wrong order, or they've not recognized, where the location, or there's all kinds of weird and wonderful things. And what you've got to do is we take that data and we'll obviously deal with that driver as an individual to solve the challenges that they face. But our team are logging all the details about why that session, what the problem was they faced. And then in the background, we're taking a quantitative view and gathering together a big picture of why people are engaging. What was the problems that were being faced? And it can be extraordinary. It can be as simple as the signage need to be changed.
Yes.
The layout, a small layout change at the site might make a major difference. Pre-authorization levels, how do we reduce those? And we've done some amazing work around pre-authorization to really drive those costs down for contactless, for example. And these kind of things just make that big iterative distance, reduce support calls, reduce support volumes, and just create a better experience. It's not going to be perfect for a good while yet, but what you're doing is building towards perfect.
Yeah, and I just love that, because ultimately, I think those 1% changes you're making will forever be the benefit of the future customer as well. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the benefits of, say, roaming versus contactless, but I'll give you one example. So a leading charge point operator came to us, and incredibly 17% of all contactless payment sessions were failing. So that's a myriad of different reasons. They could be standard things like, they simply didn't have enough money in the bank, etc. But there was a lot of things. And we basically worked out where the issues lay, went through that all with them. And from going live to 2 months later, we'd reduced it from 17% fail rate to 7% fail rate.
Wow. Brilliant.
And that was like just, conceptually just getting all the things in the right order. And then since then, we've continued to drive that number down even further. But we made those immediate understanding, made those changes. And obviously that all of a sudden, that massively improves the driver experience.
Yeah. And what I like about what you're saying as well is you going through and process mapping and finding out where the problem is and not pushing it upstream or downstream, but curing the problem gives an internal benefit commercially, but also gives a benefit to the end user as well. So I think this is really fantastic what you and the team are doing. So let's talk about something which you mentioned just now, and I'm not going to let you off without asking this question, because I keep hearing this word plug and charge. Now, I don't mind having a prediction of here if it ends up being a prediction, but is plug and charge a this year thing, or is it a little bit more long range than this year?
Yeah, I think it's a this year thing. And whether it's ubiquitous and everybody's going to use it, no, because a lot of chargers can't be upgraded from OCPP 1.6 to 2.0, and then you've got to have all the ISO 15118 capabilities that lead to enabling plug and charge. Then the next thing is then you've got plug and charge up and running, but how does it work in terms of roaming, for example? That's challenging in its own right. So there's still a lot of things that are being worked through. And what we'll start to see is a general rollout of it that will enable plug and charge for those vehicles, those chargers, that infrastructure to work. But it's not going to be like suddenly everyththing's on plug and charge. It's all changed. It's all like Tesla. Yeah. It's not going to happen. It's going to be an iterative change. And as more vehicles meet the requirements, chargers, infrastructure, software, everything meets those requirements, you'll gradually see it happen. There's a couple of players, like Ionity, for example, clearly moving ahead with it. There's a lot of work going on in Europe around plug and charge. And then the kind of middle ground is auto charge. So you're seeing some players like... obviously, Fastned have had auto charge running for quite a while now, and they don't necessarily share the numbers, but it'd be interesting to see the level of take up of auto charge as a bit of an understanding about how many people will be in a position to start looking at plug and charge. Yeah. So, and I believe GridServe are doing a trial at the moment with auto charge as well. So it's going to be iterative, and it's not going to be, suddenly everybody's going to be moving to a completely different place where it's all suddenly wonderful. Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because here at ONEEV, we are planning to be a front runner on this, but more about giving choice. We don't see it as a takeover. We see it as a choice for customers who have the facility in their car, go to those charge points that have it as a facility and then using it. So it's not something we see as a takeover, but we see it as an alignment for more choice. And that's all we are really in terms of an enabler for choice. We come and use your platforms because of choice, which is about giving the customers the experience, also about the fact that actually what
they turn out to do, which is charge your car, gets done because obviously you've got the infrastructure to support it. So all those things are about choice for our customers, and that's the way we will look at plug and charge for this year.
Yeah, I think
So
some of it's just generally about taking away complexity. You know,
yes,
BP Pulse and Shell Recharge have both stopped doing things like post pay. Post pay
yes,
is open to fraud. You know, and even things like wallets and so on. People are going, well, hang on a minute, I've got 20 apps with a bit of money in it. I've got a few £100 locked away in various places. How do I get my money back? And this kind
exactly.
of thing. And, you know, and paying at the point of transaction has always been the most simplest way to do it.
Yeah.
But if you're on a roaming card, obviously, then that's a slightly different version. And, you know, you've got your great solution. You've got Electroverse, other people doing clever ways of doing all this and bringing together the market. But what people just want is something simple and, like we were saying, reliable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when you say it. And again, we say this word simplicity and it keeps coming out time after time. And do you know what? I've only been an EV driver for about 2 years, but I can still remember the pain points, simple things like, and you mentioned it there, where I had to be £10 in credit before I could start a charge. I mean, can you imagine that? Secondly, then I can remember doing a charge where I had to then top up in £5 increments. I can remember then doing a charge and I was like 2 minutes over and I got a parking fine. I mean, I'd only had the car a month. And in that time, I had money in different pots of money. I had outstanding money, which was telling me I owed a bill. And on top of that, I got a parking fine all inside just a month. So it's a crazy world out there, right?
And I think it is here. But I've been driving a lot longer, and one of the first charges I ever went to was coin operated.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you put coins into baby charging.
Oh, well, that's amazing. So, yeah, some just things, again, though, is about this experience. I think this is what, we're really coming back to all the time. So, we've got this genuine partnership going on between Fuuse and ONEEV, and we know that it works and it works really well. Our customers tell us that in our surveys about, how pleased they are when charging with Fuuse, as an example. And then we are very happy on the B2B because you support us as well. So, and in return, it's a good cycle because then we pay our bills on time and all of that. It's just a good all-round partnership. So do you think, though, this is the way that the industry can improve by getting together and really partnering together and really helping removing the friction between the industry to help the drivers then to remove complexity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, one organisation like ourselves working on these problems is never going to do that, and we collaborate very widely, either with partners, obviously people in the roaming industry. We engage with the main roaming hubs around our own experience and how we can improve that experience, the things that we think maybe they could do better, and they do the same with us. Then we work with things like manufacturers on a regular basis, so we have an integration process that we deliver with manufacturers that goes really deep into how that charger works in terms of firmware and all the various elements of it all, but actually to see where things can go better. What can we do to support firmware releases to make sure that they're optimal? There's a raft of different things that we work together. It's things like problem identification. Though, we've just had one recently where a firmware update caused a number of chargers to go offline. Well, go into a local mode and switch to local mode, and it caused all kinds of problems for the client. We were able to spot that very early on and act on it quickly. Needed to draw together a whole loop of people and having really good relationships with the manufacturer, a really good relationship obviously with our clients and everything else, to bring that together, take all the heat out of it, because obviously there's danger of lost revenue, etc., and actually take the heat out of it and just go, right, understand what the problem was, get a resolution, and then resolve that so it didn't happen again. Just was about good human beings talking to each other and really understanding each other and having really good working relationships, collaborating to basically make it better and solve those problems.
And I agree. And sometimes when we have these errors at charge points, and we get the right technical people on board, our back end developers with the CPO, and they talk their language, I can just step back and listen, and they can fix it in just a nanosecond. I mean, we had a problem once where actually they were exchanging tickets, but they weren't resolving it. And as soon as then we got them onto a call, obviously some real smart person said, "Oh, I think it's that." The other person said, "Well, actually, we can do this as a workaround." The other one said, "Well, if you do that as a workaround, we'll test it here." And before you knew it, in 3 days, we went from a 2-week ticket to 3 days fix. And there needs to be, I think, more closer collaboration rather than opening a lot of tickets, only then to be sending a lot of communication around, which is sat on for a while. I think the CPOs out there probably could learn a little bit more about the way you structure your partnerships in a way that you communicate fast, you communicate quickly, because it's in the interest of the end user.
Yeah, I think also we're getting better at how we represent those issues. I mean, in the past, there's been individuals like Ian Johnson at Osprey, for example, who's, sadly passed away, Quentin Wilson, who've taken up issues actually as individuals as much as anything else. But what we now have is much more stronger industry representation. So Charge UK, for example, Vicky and the team there are doing a fantastic job of representing the whole CPO industry and the challenges that they face and pushing that out and into government, but also into the wider community and representing the industry, but also talking about drivers and the various issues, but bringing all that together as a whole. The REA does a really good job as well with Recharge UK and so on. So we're getting them much better at working together and having the frameworks and the industry bodies to tackle these problems more collectively.
Yeah,
there's still a long way to go. We're so much better as an industry now than we were even 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a question which is technical. So I don't want to lose the audience, but we hear about range anxiety, but I want to tell you about a personal thing, which is we went live on June the 2nd, and then for the next 6 months, I actually had something different, a different name, and that's called CDR anxiety, in which I lived the life of problems around CDRs. But they're the backbone to everything working, right? They're the everything that connects is through a CDR.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I totally agree with you. I mean, CDRs are really, really important because they're it packages up the whole thing about that session between and you're sharing that as the message record between the two parties. Unfortunately, what we've witnessed with some organisations is that this is actually, you can see spreadsheets in the background and spinning wheels doing all this kind of thing, doing the reconciliation. And we have systems built to do all that, and which is fantastic and helps us to analyze and pick up problems very quickly and, make sure that our clients have their money very, very quickly off the back of it all. But in some places, it's literally, squirrels and things, and it's still a bit crazy. And I think it'll be interesting, where the market heads. There's some interesting companies around like Anapi and others who are trying to do not only be the kind of facilitator of charging sessions, obviously OCPI, CDRs, etc., but actually, and similarly with Hubject as well, becoming much more of a financial institution or a financial clearinghouse. And you see that obviously in the financial markets, that there's specialist clearinghouses and other organisations that exist within a market to ensure transactions and be the agent of record and all this kind of thing. That there's still a role for organisations like that, I think, and it'll be interesting to see how that all materialises.
Yeah. On the flip side, it's an exciting industry. I mean, I met some great people, yourself included, amongst a lot of others, and the ones that we met, when we were on that stage panel. What excites you about the industry?
Well, crikey, so much really. I mean, it's so diverse, and you can lose focus. That's undoubtedly and it simply stems from one thing, really, that first of all, charging infrastructure can vary so dramatically, from literally sticking a charger on a lamppost in your house all the way up to megawatt charging. So you've got various different infrastructure for different use cases, and that makes it really interesting. And the fact that obviously we're going back to petrol and diesel, you just go to a forecourt because it has to be secure and everything else. Whereas charging can be anywhere with a car parking space, anywhere with the right electrical infrastructure gives you the ability to charge. So what we're seeing is really interesting things happening. We're working with First Bus across their depots to open up their depots to on a B2B basis, so that other large fleets can charge there during the day and make use of that brilliant infrastructure that First Bus have built when it's empty during the day and the buses are out on the road doing their thing, and when they come back it's for the buses. But during the day, let's utilize that and make that infrastructure more optimized and utilized. And it's been brilliant to see people making full use of those incredible facilities that they have up in Glasgow and in other sites now as well. Those kind of initiatives really give the market another step forward and open up new opportunities and new conversations. And what's the art of the possible? And we see more of these every day, and it just makes the whole industry something more engaging and compelling, and it's exciting for product developers, exciting for product people, for developers, for sales teams and everyone else. There's something new and exciting going on every day that just keeps their brain juices flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the things that excite us alongside what you're saying is, you mentioned Appy. I mean, I had my business partner one day ring me and said that he had a discussion with an Appy and that they can get us online by the end of the week, and that was like only 4 days away. Having known what it was like to get online with other hubs and get all the certification and all that done, I was not really a big fan, thinking this is like pretty much impossible. But yet I went and signed up for the process, and I was literally onboarded in 2 days. I mean, that's very exciting.
Yeah,
I think
it's brilliant.
that's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I know somebody actually you're familiar with, and I was speaking to them this week in a podcast, and that's Arnold Clark. And it's really good that they're looking at the lifestyle of the customer. And we had some feedback just this week about them as well, in terms of that they were one of our customers was having problems. They were a new user, so they went and spoke to the Arnold Clark person, and they came out and helped them with our app to get it started and going.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so good, though. It's so refreshing where you've got brands like this who are actually now all about the end user. So they accept the equipment and the tech in between, but they just are focusing on the end user. And I've got to be honest with you, which is exciting, when you speak to people with purpose like that, it says that we are making a shift in the right direction. And we're really excited about being part of that.
Yeah, no, Arnold Clark's a brilliant company, extraordinary company. Their innovation centres are a joy to go to, and there's a real, it's embracing the whole electrification of transport that they've done. And they've just said, well, we're not just going to sell these electric vehicles, actually, we're going to charge them as well, and realising the opportunity that's there. And that network is doing incredibly well because it's well priced, it's in a place where people know, it's typically in the hearts of people's communities. It's a business that they know because they'll have purchased a vehicle there or have a relationship with Arnold Clark, and that then transfers into someone else. So you go to the sites now and there's a free coffee. The staff are lovely, always brilliant on the sites anyway. So you've got that extra little bit of rationale for going there, and it just and the charging facilities are fantastic. The Kempower units that they've done, the deployment, the ability to book the chargers in advance.
Yes.
A real industry first in the UK, and it's been brilliant to work with them to make it all happen. And you just get a fantastic user experience, and that's what people want. Yeah,
and it's incredible. I was getting a chance to talk to them. We're having this discussion just around their model, and their model is really interesting in terms of, they struck me as something which were really leading the way, and that was this, which is, we're all businesses, we're all in a commercial world where we want to make money for our businesses. That's the nature of the game. But they were saying that actually, because they think so much about the consumer, if there could be an 8-bay space, but actually they could improve it for the end user by having a 6-bay space, which means that they basically are reducing, by 2. They would rather go with a 6-bay space. Now, that for me is literally customer led. That's like having a customer in your boardroom when you're strategically making decisions. So I'm really super excited to be working with people like that. And this week, last week, we also reached out and spoke to them because we're the most returning customers inside 1 week. And I think there's 2 things. Firstly, it's the locations. Secondly, the help. Thirdly, the pricing. They've got the pricing structure right as well, which is really, really good for this industry.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it, and we've been able to support that in terms of facilitating, obviously, this whole charging experience with Arnold Clark. Another brilliant one is BEV. BEV was the top performing network really outside of Tesla, and an extraordinary business. And they've done so many wonderful things. I mean, some of their sites are just glorious, really excellent signage. But doing really clever stuff like subscriptions at the moment. Their mega subscription brings the charge down to 39 pence a kilowatt hour. Such a brilliant price for end users. But really, they're absolutely fantastic at being customer first.
Yeah,
and they push us all the time. They really make sure that our team is making sure that we're doing the absolute best to deliver for the BEV across all the services and the software that we provide to them to give their end users just a brilliant experience. And it's great to have a customer like that who pushes you relentlessly. It's fantastic because the outcome is it's proven in those app map awards just how well they're rated and how much they're loved by their end.
Yeah, do you know what the funny thing is great thinking out there. There's some crazy thinking. I was speaking to a CPO just the other day who I love crazy thinking, and because it does challenge you to think differently. They made a prediction where they thought in the years to come that EMSP would disappear off the planet, which was quite a surprising thing to say. I said, well, actually, I think the years ahead, that there's going to be two things. The ones that will win will be the ones that actually focus on the customer first. So kind of park the subscription models for the moment, because they were big in the subscription models. I said, that's not going to be the enabler. The enabler is the end experience for the customer. What do they get out of it? Because they're simply coming from a platform of filling out with petrol and diesel. They know the system. They want something similar, equivalent, or better. So, it was a strange one that they were saying, but it was really nice to hear that they had an opinion. But it made me think about my opinion as well, and my opinion still stays the same. Actually, it's all going to be about the customer as we move forward.
No, great. I mean, at the end of the day, we won't get the transition to full electric fleet if it isn't a great user experience, and we're not listening to the wants and needs of the customer, the reasons why they don't want to buy or an EV, the concerns that they have. And going back to the education piece, it's so vital that we address remove the myths, but actually where there is a real practical problem, and it continues obviously with a lack of capability around certain, obviously people who've got no access to charging at home, for example. We have to do something to narrow that gap, because you're going to end up with a situation where those who can't charge at home are going to be paying double or more what an average somebody is capable of charging at home. And the other benefits that are associated with home charging that's going to come through, like V2G, etc., open up another world of opportunity to, as electricity prices will inevitably come down, or availability of electricity changes the dynamics of how the market works. It's only going to be home users who are going to get that benefit. So we have to do something to change those issues within the market, to bring them together. And we've obviously talked about them, but they're all there. Obvious. One of the things I still think should have been done straight away was lower VAT to 5%.
Yeah.
It would have been a really simple step, and the government could have said, yeah, okay, we're going to bring in the road tax as an offset for that, rather than thinking about reduction in fuel duty, really, and actually tie the two things together to give CPOs and everybody else a better opportunity to grow and be even more successful.
Yeah, and I think again more needs to be done around that by the government in relation to understanding the projection we're going in terms of what does the end user need, in the same way as that they needed at the beginning for petrol and diesel. There wasn't just a sudden surge. There was a take up, and get that switch over is really going to be important. So I have one more thought just before we close though. So if we fast forward a year, what would the success look like for an EV driver?
What would success look like for an EV driver?
Yeah, so take the side of it, the EV driver would look back and say, 1 year on, I am really happy because of.
I mean, I don't know we're going to talk about at the end, but for me, and I'm an EV driver, it isn't about success. There isn't like a journey that I'm on. The journey is the journey I do in the car every day.
Yeah.
I am of the view that electric vehicles are so much better than petrol and diesel. It's just such a better experience. I mean, everything. So there isn't like I'm on a journey, in a year's time it'll be different. It's the same car. The moment I got into my most recent car and I could do things like set the climate. So in other words, it's frozen solid out there. And then all my neighbours are out scraping the windows and my car's just completely warm and comfortable, and he's saying it's fantastic.
Yeah.
That I've got instant acceleration. When I put my foot down, it just goes, right? I don't get things that I don't care about failing. I mean, spark plugs and whatever. What?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? I mean, I've had an EV now for 7 years and I've only had one thing go wrong. And that was like, and it was tiny, and it's like I've had no service and maintenance costs. They take it in for a service and they go, it's £85, and I went, what did you do for 85? We ran some diagnostics, obviously nothing happened, and then they went and we changed the pollen filter, and you're like, 85 quid, are you serious? It's crazy. But it's like, and that's almost every time they're embarrassed when they're doing the service to say, well, no, we've got to price the same thing, and you're like, you're kidding. I mean, the experience comes from day one. And yeah, if you're new to the world of charging and things, you are going to might get a little bit frustrated, but that's a learning journey, and that's your self-education as much as anything else. But people find the happy place, they're charging at home. Most of the charging will be done at home. Once they get the right tariff set up and everything else, that they go, this is easy. And then it's into, then what do I do about on the road? And people get nervous about it. And all of a sudden they find fantastic sites like we were talking about with the BEV site, Manchester Oasis and all this kind of thing. It's 39p. It's just fantastic. There's a brilliant cost of coffee there. I can have a brew. I can do some work. I can do it's brilliant. And all of a sudden it's part of it becomes part of your life. And you wonder why there was ever a petrol and diesel world, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you know what? Success, as an EV driver, success for me would look like this in 1 year. I just want people to stop judging me that I bought an EV car because I want to change the world. I bought an EV car because I love the car. And
exactly.
All the things you say in terms of the features, mine drives itself. I can sit here in the freezing cold, sit here in the warm with it freezing cold outside. I can get the car started and get it all defrosted. I can just walk out into it. It's the right size for my family and my dogs. I got the car because of the car. I didn't get the car to change the world. That is a byproduct of the fact that actually it will do that eventually. So if I can just ask for one thing, people, for the EV world, stop judging me that I want to change the world, because that's not my first concern. My first concern was to have a car that I liked.
It's just better.
Yeah, all round. Okay, look, to the point where actually, to be honest, you've answered some amazing questions. And also as well, you really shared really well things that are happening in the industry. But let's think about the EV driver. What's the one message you could leave for a new EV driver who are just about to convert? What would it be? What would your advice be to a new EV driver?
Yeah, I think you said you added the caveat in there. They're just about to convert, and my one would be just do it. Do it, go for it, because it'll change your life for the better in terms of your regular drive, and you've got a regular experience of, and there will always be people who like their muscle cars or whatever it is, the noise and all that nonsense, but if you want a quiet, efficient, effective, better driving experience, then just get a decent, good electric car. And the quality of them now, I mean, you see some of the Chinese cars coming into the market and some of them are absolutely outstanding. You can see prices is coming down dramatically. The range and scale of options available to you. Just do it. Get on with it, get into an electric. And if you still got your doubts, go to a dealership, go on a test drive, give it a whirl, because these people who say, I'll never get an electric vehicle, I'll never get in one. And it's like, are you that blinkered? Are you that, that bad that you would never try something out? Yeah. Go and give it a go and then see what it does. Yeah.
Well, to the audience who are listening, you heard it here first from a top CEO in a top brand. And the advice is just do it. Just go for it. Thank you, Mike, so much for spending the time with us. I know you're a really busy guy, so to take some time and share it with our audience, we really appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate you and your team for all the work you do in the background with us.
No, it's a pleasure. And thank you, Tim, for doing it. And, and great to see businesses like ONEEV coming into the market and doing something, really driver focused. I think anything doing this is good for the industry. So I think, the ability for us to work together as we do so many other partners is such a vital part of how this industry will develop. So yeah, and great to be on here, just being part of being able to share some thoughts around the things that you and I really care passionately about.
Thank you very much.